Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sheri.
And together we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today, Sheri and I are going to take you on a tour of Monet's house. We've already been in the garden, and most of this will be Sheri. Sheri has been waiting to do this for quite some time, so I will let Sheri begin our tour.
Bonjour, everyone. Well, we finished with the garden, so now I'll tell the chickens goodbye before we go into the house. You know I love chickens. Plus, I will tell you a scandalous story about the Monets. Yes, the house is bright pink and with dark green trim. Claude shows these colors for both the interior and exterior parts of the house. And in a Victorian world with heavy, dark rooms, heavy, dark furniture, and layers of draperies to shut out the light, he chose light and an elegant simplicity. All right, let me start my scandalous story. It begins in 1876 when Claude began having an affair with a client's wife. The client was Ernest and his wife was Alice. Within a year, the two couples found themselves living in the same house, but not this one. You'll notice the house is very wide, but it's not very deep. This allows light to flood into all the rooms. The flowers on the trellis are climbing roses. Claude first rented this property, and later, when he was a little more financially stable, he bought it. It was his just perfect heaven on earth. Here we have more geraniums and more scandal. The affair continued while the two couples lived under the same roof, but Alice's husband, Ernest, moved off to Belgium. Well, really, can you blame him? I have no idea how Camille, Claude's wife, is taking this, but I doubt she had options for herself and two children. Here I am, ready to fill a bucket list dream, Claude Monet's home. You won't be disappointed. I wonder what kind of games the 8 children played on this tiny, narrow porch. Claude probably had a wicker bistro table for his morning coffee while looking out over his beloved gardens. This entry area is small. The dining room and the kitchen are over to our right, and the sitting room, pantry, and Claude's first studio are to your left. And we see the first of the more than 200 Japanese prints and paintings Monet collected. As many Impressionists were, he was fascinated with Japanese art also. I can imagine myself sitting by this window looking out at the garden. But enough of the story about the house. Let's go back to the story of the scandal. Well, Camille, Claude's wife, developed cancer and died in 1879. Alice, to help Claude out, takes her 6 children and his 2 children and goes back to Paris. But soon they are living together again. Claude, Alice, who's still married to Ernest, by the way, and 8 children. But again, not in this house, but soon. In 1883, Claude is on a trip and sees a little village and says, "We must live here," or something like that, but in French. It must have been a wise choice because he lived here for the rest of his life, the next 43 years. Yes, beautiful brown tiles. Yeah. Okay, so Alice, Claude, and all 8 children move into the house, a rental. He doesn't buy the house until his money improves. It's 7 years since the affair began, and Alice is still married to Ernest, who still lives somewhere else, thank God. Le Petit Salon Bleu, the little blue sitting room that was also called the reading room. This room connects to a tiny room, much like a butler's pantry. When the vegetables and eggs came in from the garden and deliveries were made, they arrived and probably were stored in the pantry. I love this clock, painted to match the walls. Very modern then, and far from the heavy, dark world of Victorian furnishings. What's going on in our soap opera? From time to time, Ernest shows up to visit Alice. When he arrives, Claude leaves the house and goes, somewhere else. Well, as you can see, the house is full of tourists, of course, but not so many that we can't enjoy it. I love this little cabinet on the wall. It's for storing eggs here in the pantry. The coat rack shows the Japanese influence, and the beautiful aqua blue containers do as well. Back to my story. In 1886, 10 years after the affair began, Ernest shows up and again demands Alice and the children go back to Paris to live with him. And Alice says, "I don't think so." "No." And Ernest says, "I'm not paying you support money any longer." Finally, Ernest is getting a clue. He's been paying her for 10 years. Oh, a beautiful Japanese chest, 3 pouring vessels, and more of the 200 Japanese prints, and the latest installment of my story. In 1891, 15 years after the beginning of the story, Ernest dies. Alice and Claude marry the following year. Down a short flight of stairs, we enter Monet's first studio area. The walls are covered with copies of his works. In later years, this area was converted back to a sitting room and his studio was moved into another building on the property. I'm there on the left, transfixed by the overwhelming abundance of his work, even though they're only copies. The man in the center of the room wearing a black shirt seems to be in a similar state. The floral chaise lounge and settee seem a bit feminine to me, but who am I to critique Monet? The desk and bronzes are original, and you will notice a picture of Monet on the table. This is the other side of the studio. I would give my eye teeth for that painting of the skiff and the young couple in the boat. Of course, a copy, not just, the real thing. Couldn't do that. This is me at the window shooting a picture of a view that Monet must have admired many times. This shot from above gives you an idea of the complexity in planning so that each of the areas that you're in pulls you farther into the garden as though it's an adventure of beauty. Well, back to the house. These next few pictures of Claude's bedroom. It was normal for husbands and wives to have their own sleeping rooms at that time. This room is beautifully appointed. The armoire matches the bed. The beautiful chest with the marble top and inlaid desk would please me any day. This is a picture of Bob taking a mirror selfie. The bedrooms were connected through the bathrooms. His washstand had a faucet indicating plumbing had been brought into the house. You may notice there's no commode. Still the days of chamber pots. Monet had friends' paintings in the bathroom as well. His friend, Paul Cézanne, in the bathroom. Alice's washstand has no plumbing, so she probably stepped into his area to fill her washing pitcher. This is probably a good time for the last of the history lesson of scandal. Blanche, one of Alice's daughters, marries her stepbrother, Claude's son, and Blanche continues to live in this house until her death in 1947. Pink striped bedspread, floral wallpaper, dainty chair, as well as a lady's desk, a charming room for a woman who appears rather stern in her photos. The fireplace is charming, even if it does have those frou-frou porcelains under glass domes. I'm really not big on Victorian clutter, but this was probably the only space that she had any choice in choosing the furnishings, especially since Claude chose everything right down to the paint colors. Ah, my yellow dining room. I have loved this since I saw a picture literally decades ago. The table is set for 12, and everywhere you look there are more chairs, so I suspect the table can be made larger. Double French doors leading to the narrow front porch bring in light and fresh air. A must for Monet. I also love that checked floor. The lovely carving on the china cabinets almost goes unnoticed, as do the other fittings for the room. The consistently saturated yellow keeps the room from feeling busy. It's almost like being in tangible sunshine. What is more French than yellow, blue, and white? Or the red and white cream tiles? Or the blue checked chair cushion? Très chic, très chic. You may have noticed this earlier, a picture of Monet in his dining room. And here is Bob doing his best Monet in the same room, only he has a camera, no paintbrushes. The sleeping cat ceramic belongs in Alice's bedroom, but it's been moved without her permission. It's based on a famous Japanese carving. I think its head is so beautifully shaped. The kitchen is blue and white so that it continues the flow of color, coordinating with the dining room's accents. Claude thought of everything. The terracotta red floor continues the color of the dining room floor also. The sink even coordinates. All of the tiles are made in Rouen, which is not far away. This is me trying to figure out how to get my copper pans arranged so artfully and how they may maintain this shine. Mine oxidize. This kitchen almost sings. The colors and textures make me want to go home and do everything in my entire house in French country right in the middle of the United States. This giant stove, with its multiple ovens, must have been an expensive necessity. I can't imagine cooking for 8 kids and 2 adults, plus Ernest, who drops in from time to time, and now famous Impressionist artists who stop by for a fortnight. Claude has 6 gardeners. I certainly hope Alice has plenty of household help as well. Before I'm arrested for pot lifting, Bob takes us back outside, but I'm coming back someday. The boutique, or gift shop as we call it. This is the loveliest gift shop I think I've been in. Great books, art posters, flower seeds from the great-great-grandchildren of Monet's plants, aprons, towels, little trinkets of all kinds. And for only 800 euros, about $1,200, I can have a miniature dining room complete with art and open French doors to bring the outdoors inside. I'll take a break and let Bob finish up our day while I dream of Giverny.
Now that Sherry's finished up the house of Monet, I will take us back to Paris. So here's where we met the rest of our group so that we could begin our drive back to Paris. We went on the opposite side of the Seine River and went through the countryside. Saw a wonderful group of bikers there. Unfortunately, they were coming the other direction because if they get in front of you, it's a little slow. Ultimately, we get back to Paris. We can see the churches on the way in. That is not Notre Dame. That's just one of the churches on the outskirts of the city. Then we go right down through the center of town, past the Eiffel Tower by the Trocadero, and then return to where we started. In the evening, Sheri and I had a tour and dinner scheduled for Vicomte Vaux, or Vaux-le-Vicomte, however you like to pronounce it. So here we are having dinner at Vaux-le-Vicomte, and then here is a view of the chateau before we begin touring it. But that's another show. Sheri and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett on YouTube. It should be History According to Bob, but it comes up as Bob Packett. That's the easiest way to get to it. And please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, give a comment, and if you like history, please come by historyaccordingtobob.com website where I do 6 podcasts a week on different topics in history, and there's all sorts of CDs and other things that you can see. So thank you very much.